We got to the 10th year. She wanted to leave. She said, I'm done. It came out in the conversations. It came out in how we interacted. And we had to dig and try to find out what is going on. Her dad passed away. And she wanted to be like her dad. And I said, I'm not your dad. You're not sleeping with your dad.
Welcome back to Sam and Jen Got Divorced. We are glad you are here. We have a saying around here. We say, our marriage didn't work, but our podcast is working pretty good. Thank you so much for being here. We are so excited to have our special guest hosts in the building. We have Pastors Dean and Jackie, and they are here to meet with us. They are a married couple, and they want to give us some wisdom from their years of togetherness, okay? The ups, the downs, the rounds and rounds, all the things. So get your coffee, get your drink, get your whatever you need to get, and sit tight, because it's going to be a good one. Welcome, Dean and Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us on your podcast. Where to begin? You know, it was so funny when we connected with you when we actually met, and then you were telling us about the podcast. Can I be honest? I remember going home and I was talking to Dean, and I was like,
The facial expressions.
Interesting. Like, concepts really
interesting to say the least, eh?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
And I was like, I believe, the first question when we were talking, we were like, okay, so with all the wisdom and insight, are they going to get back together? But then I thought, do you really, like, not that I'm we believe promoting that, but it's encouraging to hear a couple talk about their struggles and being able to share it in a positive way, giving your own insight, because when you're looking at marriages today, I feel the word divorce is just like a microwave. It's just like it's a quick thing to press, and then it's and then it's over.
It's a default, actually.
Default, but just not understanding that there's a lot involved. It's not as easy.
But it's interesting because in the West Indian culture, they don't do divorce, but they are separated and they still live in the same house.
What we call it? West Indian.
We call it West Indian marriage.
Divorce.
We call it West Indian divorce. They don't separate at all, but they live in separate rooms. And that's a different concept in itself. But they don't really help each other. They just live together and they cohabitate, but they're not really together, which doesn't make any sense to me. But what you're doing now, it's kind of opening up a new understanding that, you know what? Yes. Let's give our point of view and how we can help others, and especially when they go through that challenging stage. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. I feel validated. I don't know about you. But yeah, no, that's definitely part of what we are doing, what the vision is for this this space. And the idea here is, West Indian divorce, I love that term because it's very true.
Very true.
Right? You're checked out or cut off emotionally, financially, perhaps, maybe not. But, romantically and in any of the ways that are important for connection, you're cut off or separated, but you're sharing space, physical space, and
your
that
roommates, they call it out here.
Yeah.
But even roommates, don't roommates kind of get along? And well, maybe not, actually. I don't know. I got along with my
I've had some
roommate,
bad roommates. I'm going to tell you that right
You've
now.
had some bad. So yeah, I've had pretty good experiences. So I think that is a good sort of picture.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us can be living that and perhaps not realize it.
Yeah, but it strays even further because I've met counseled couples like that where they come to church now and one sits on the bottom and the other one sits on the riser and they go home together. Which it makes it even worse. So they live together, they live in separate rooms, but when they come to church, one sits upstairs, one sits downstairs, but they go home together.
Yeah, wow.
Makes no sense.
And the thing is, like, once that connection is broken, it can be so hard to get it back, right?
So true.
Like something that we experienced, and let me actually speak for myself. In our marriage, there was times when I felt just so distant from Genevieve, for not blaming her at all, like for my own reasons.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know how to. I felt trapped because I felt like this is gonna be how it's gonna be for the rest of our life. Like we're never gonna have that level of intimacy and closeness and connection and understanding that I had envisioned for our marriage. But it's a marriage, so what do I do? Right? I gotta. I can't leave. I can't get divorced. Right? I don't believe in divorce. So that was, I'm empathetic to people who are in those situations where they don't have the tools or the understanding. They're struggling to, like, if it was up to them, they would love to be connected. They would love to be close. They would love to sit in church or wherever else with their partner, do things with their partner, but they don't still know how.
Yeah. Wow. And I think that's the challenging part where you're in a relationship is dissolving, and someone's dissolving rapidly, and you're trying to pick up the pieces and saying, how can we put this together? Can we put this together? And it, as you try to put together, it falls apart even more. Wow. Yeah. So it happens with us, myself and Jackie. I think marriages goes in stages. There's a honeymoon period, which is a year. Stages. It goes in 5, it goes in 10, it goes in 15, it goes in 25. And then each stage is a different challenge. I know with us, the honeymoon stage was great, but as soon as we got to the 10th year, she wanted to leave. She said, I'm done. I'm done with this guy, and I don't want to be with him right now. And it came out in the conversations. It came out in how we interacted with each other, and we had to dig and try to find out what is going on. How can we? And she realized that she wanted me to be like her dad, and I'm not. Her dad passed away, and she wanted to be like her dad. And I said, I'm not your dad. You're not sleeping with your dad. I'm not your dad. And she couldn't get over that because she wanted me to do everything her dad did. And I said, I'm not Wilton. I'm Dean. So you have to switch that concept of who I am.
Number one is the trauma. It's not being able, we didn't have the space to deal with the trauma. So that trauma came into the marriage. And so, and not even unbeknownst to me, to be honest, until when I remember praying to God, and I was like, and you get to that point where as you were saying before, Sam, you start to feel disconnected, and you're starting to feel empty. And I remember just saying, I love this man. I said, but God, I'm just having a hard time with something, and I couldn't really figure it out. And I remember saying to him, I said, God, I really need help with how I feel. And it was my response from God was, you know what? Your attitude needs changing. Yeah, my attitude wasn't very good. And so I needed it to be, he put me in check. He put me in perspective, that I needed to take it off of me, but take it off of me in a sense where I had to look, this is actually weird to say, but I had to take it off of me, but put myself on the outside of me to see what was going on. Yeah. And that gave me a different perspective of the situation. And it also helped me to see that I was dealing with something that was beyond.
I think that's such a good point to bring up, especially because you guys have been it for the long haul. And I mean, we were in it for the short haul, but there were definitely points in that short haul where I felt like I couldn't recover. Like this was, the worst place ever, the worst thing ever in life. And what I did notice was that there was a lot of stuff that came up within the marriage that was from previous days and years and weeks and so on, and relationships in my life that didn't have anything to do with, obviously they preceded Samuel and any kind of relationship that we had. So even you expressing, sort of wrestling with a lot of feelings, thoughts, ideas, that had to do with past trauma, that had to do with pre-Dean, right? So this is pre-relationship, pre-marriage, in however many years of your life you experienced before you guys met. There were things that happened. Yeah. There was life that was lived. There were other relationships. There were other connections. There were other broken connections. And there were feelings that came up in that space. And I think sometimes we invalidate the fact that these feelings can come up at a later time. Like maybe we didn't fully deal with it. Maybe we didn't fully get over it. Maybe we didn't address it, right? And so it can come up in moments when there is distress or when there's discontent. And to be able to have time, space, and self-awareness to identify, hey, maybe this is actually, you link it to your dad and you say, I would like for my husband to be like my dad. I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It does.
It does.
Right? It's like, my dad is the first male
Yeah.
that I ever was in a relationship with.
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean? That's the first model, the first sort of prototype. But realizing that some of the feelings and emotions, the desires and expectations are not viable within the context is important, right? So even though you feel it or you want it and you desire it and so on, it's still being able to separate, like create space, perspective, as you were saying, right? So create space between the two and be able to say, yeah, you know what? But he's not my dad.
Yeah.
Right? Even though I might want some of the things that my dad might have given me. And I think that's actually really hard to do.
Yes,
so I don't know so you said I kind of had to come out of myself and see myself. I'm wondering if you had help doing that or like, what was sort of your process? Like, how did you, like, that's amazing, right? Because it's like, how did you do that? Because a lot of us would be like, I feel a lot of things and this is all true and I got to get out of here.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, there's a process in, doing the externalizing of that. And so I wonder,
and that is hard to do when you're actually in a situation, because this is the way I see it, when something's breaking down, you're not, and you're feeling that hurt, automatic reaction is you turn inward and you look at yourself. Well, you're doing this. You're making me, feel a certain way. I'm not happy. So you start to, this was me targeting Dean. Like, this is not being,
that's the piece
this
too.
is not being met with me. Yeah. So when I started to pray to God about it, the first thing was attitude. I remember going, attitude. And I'm going, but I'm the one that's, feeling like I'm not being heard or my needs are not, being met. And I felt like I was doing everything. Like I'm giving and giving and giving, and I'm not getting anything back. And keep in mind, we just had a baby. So our baby was young. So when God said to me, attitude, attitude, that would mean I have to start to look at myself. My attitude.
Yes.
And first thing I'm even talking and I'm going, well, what about him? You know what I mean?
Which is so common.
Yes. What about him? Yeah. So then I started to evaluate. That's where I had to step back, as I said, from myself, come out of the situation and look at how I was dealing with the situation.
I wanna pinpoint something there and ask you honestly, because something that when I'm on the interwebs and reading through some of the relationship discourse of today, something that I hear a lot and see a lot is the idea that for a woman to be a feminine, submissive woman, her man needs to be operating in a masculine way and enabling her to do that. But what I'm hearing based on what you're saying is that the messaging you were getting when you were praying and connecting with God was that it started with your attitude, right? So how would you respond to somebody who says, if the man is doing what he's doing in the way that he's approaching you, then this wouldn't be an issue for you? Is it his responsibility? Is it your responsibility? Is it both? How does that play out?
I feel first and foremost, even though we're one unit, we're still separate.
Two individuals.
Yeah,
absolutely.
we're still two individuals. So when the point came of myself, it's how am I contributing to the relationship? Because the way I see it, it takes two to break it down. That's the way I see it. It's whether one sees something and not speaking up, or if the other person is directly doing something, it takes two in the relationship, because it takes two of you to make it work, right? So what are the two of you contributing to that relationship with the state that it's in, the breaking down?
But it depends to the background of the other individual, because I come from a background, a large family, 8, 6 boys, 2 girls, and parent and a grandparent, and we were loud in the sense, but then when it came to conflict, we were quiet. So we didn't deal with conflict at all. So when I entered a relationship with her and conflict came, it's like, why are you quiet? Why are you quiet? Why are you quiet?
Yeah.
Why are you quiet? This is how I dealt with it. And the saying goes, most men, they don't like to dive into things. They stay quiet until everything breezes off. Well, I stayed quiet for months because that's what I was taught.
Yeah.
And it damaged the relationship even more because you're bringing in a learned behavior from your large family. Even though it was a very large family, when we dealt with conflict, we did not deal with it. We just put it under the carpet and hoped that it will go away, but didn't realize that it was still there when we lift up the carpet, and many other things were under there as well. And I think that was the issue too that I brought into. She dealt with the trauma. I dealt with not dealing with conflict.
Family of origin rules.
Yes.
Sounds
Yeah.
like.
So now we're clashing. She's dealing with how to deal with me. Well, you need to be like my dad. You need to be my dad. You need to be my dad. I said, I don't know how to be like that. And number 2, I don't know how to be a man because I was never taught it to deal with conflict.
Wow.
I was only told just to be quiet and hopefully you'll go away. So we had to intertwine our understandings. I know Jacqueline and I, we deal a lot with mental health things where we talk to people about mental health. And, the scientists say there's like thousands of thoughts that enter our minds daily. And we got to make sure a lot of it's repetitious as well, too. And we don't use an old situation in a new situation and call it a new situation, even though it's an old situation. So what we do, a lot of us do, we take that old situation, we plant it in the new and say, we got to deal with this now. And we don't deal with it because it's a familiar thing. And it just damages us even more. And what we had to learn to do as a couple is sift out certain things and talk. And as we've been married for 24 plus years, it's just talking.
They made it, Joe.
Talking.
They made it past.
I know. With
Talking.
24, hitting 24.
And talking. And that's what was hard for me because I talked. I love to joke around. And when she met me, I was the joker. I like to joke around, but not talk seriously. But when things are damaging a relationship, talk is cheap.
Yeah.
Talk is so cheap. And men, we do not like to talk when it comes to us, what we have to deal with. And that was a challenge, getting over that hill that I have to correct myself so I can try to fix this.
But I think that's what I was saying when it takes two and you're talking about breaking down. We automatically bring things into a relationship.
Yeah, automatically.
Sometimes we're aware, and sometimes we're not aware. And when it's almost like a class. It's almost like the coming together of two worlds, and you hope that it works. But marriage doesn't come when you're first starting out. You can give me all the manuals and whatever you want, but because we're two different individuals, sometimes it works right away, and sometimes it takes a while, and sometimes it never does, because there are things, especially when you're two individuals that are coming into a relationship, and you are bent because of your family upbringing that your way works.
Absolutely.
And you're telling me
and
to
it has
change?
worked. It has worked up until that point.
Yeah.
So kudos.
Yeah.
But in this, it won't work.
It's like I can give you the numbers to the winning lottery ticket that won yesterday, but what good is that going to do you? different scenario.
It's already passed.
I wanted to ask you guys a question. At what point, because we're talking about divorce, at what point did you think something would be helpful to those?
Like what we're doing now?
Yeah.
Oh. Last year? when we started. Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit of history.
Well, I guess, so what made you want to, in your situation, what clicked to say, I think this, the way we are, is going to help other couples?
So, yeah, that wasn't immediately evident. I do another podcast, or we call them transformational conversations.
Yeah.
Check us out. The relationship series, Real, REAL.
Yeah. Nice plug.
The relationship series, and we have conversations about all things relationships, because I really do believe we're born for relationships. And so we talk about divorce, we talk about friends with benefits, we talk about workplace husbands and why we talk about all the things that can come up, any kinds of connection oriented, whether it's distorted or not. So I was doing a segment on divorce, and he had asked to have a conversation. I said, hey, you should come on my divorce segment. And it was during that conversation that I thought, oh, it'd be interesting to have more of a deeper or lengthy conversation around divorce. I was like, oh, we should do a podcast type of thing. Haha. And he was like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. And here we are, right? But at the time, in my mind, it was more around my own difficulty in finding resources or finding people willing to have open and honest conversation around divorce and the difficulties that come and the challenges that we face. So it was more of like a, hey, how do we heal from this really hard thing that a lot of people are going through? There aren't a lot of resources. Hey, how do we get married? Oh, we have tons.
Yeah.
Hey, how do we find ourselves in a romantic relationship and get chocolate and flowers at Valentine's Day? Lots. But how do we really heal from this process? And it's been a long time, and I'm still healing.
Yeah.
So, and I dig into resources. So if I dig into resources and it's still hard for me almost 10 years later, how much more difficult is it for those who may isolate, right? Yeah. Or who may not have access to resources or friends or support groups or a church family or a supportive family or whatever the case is. I mean, my goodness, there were days when I was spiraling. So, and I already have all those, you know what I mean? So it was more of a thought of like, how can we do relationships better? Hey, how can we do relationships after divorce better? Because it's something I've been through.
For me, it was, I had been having one-on-one conversations, sharing vulnerably my experiences. And I had a lot of conversations where people were like, wow, I can relate to that. I went through something similar, or my cousin went through something similar, or my parents experienced something similar. And what I realized is that there are people who are more comfortable or able to have some of these conversations and open those doors. And from that comes people are able to reflect and explore and experience greater levels of healing, right? Even if their path is slightly different. So they're able to understand things more. So I was, I benefited similarly from people sharing vulnerably in books that I've read or things that I've watched or conversations I've had one-on-one. So I thought that, like, why not? Why, if I've been a recipient of this, and if the one-on-one conversations I've had have been life-giving in some small regard, if Genevieve and I can get around the awkwardness of working together as exes, why couldn't we be able to talk about things that we haven't heard very many other people talk about, and perhaps spur on other conversations, other reflections, and greater levels of healing that way? Why can't we pay it forward in the same way we received whatever we received?
Oh.
I like that. And there is that, which is sad, there is that healing piece that really needs to take place. And I feel there's just the lack of, as you said, there's limited resources. So there's a lack of understanding in terms of the feelings that are involved.
Absolutely.
In that sometimes you're, and even if another relationship comes along, sometimes you bring that into the relationship. We're just so,
if it's not healed, you're going to repeat it. You're going to carry it with you.
Another element is, which is connected to why we got married in the first place, is that Genevieve is honest to the point of offense, and I am vulnerable or sharing to the point of not caring very much what other people think about me. Like, I remember my friends when I was younger, even before I met Genevieve, they'd be like, Samuel, you have no shame. Because I was willing to do things that would be embarrassing to other people. And to me, like, I still can feel that sometimes, but my threshold for what's embarrassing and what I'm too ashamed to do is different than a lot of other people, especially in some of the communities we come from. So I think looking back, that drew us to each other to a degree, is that we had less of a filter about what we wouldn't do or say, etc. So even now, like, I have friends, I was talking to a close friend of mine, he's like, this is not a very attractive thing you're doing, Samuel. If you want to get married again, like, who's going to want you working this closely with your ex in this way? And I'm like, I don't care. I would prefer to make the impact. And then if 90% of potential spouses are not interested, there'll be 10% who are.
Right.
If I'm looking to get married in that way, right?
This is actually a really good dating strategy. I just realized that. Like, the dudes out here who'd be interested in me, even though I'm working closely with Samuel, who's my ex, would be very secure in themselves. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no threat.
And we're only going to do more, like, Genevieve is only going to offend more people, respectfully. And me too. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not, like, both of us are the type of people who will do what we think is the right way to do, even if it's off the beaten path.
Yeah. And I think this is also very assignment driven. We're both people of faith. And so we do recognize that there's a gap, and we have been both equipped and called to fill the gap.
Yeah.
So there's purpose in it. There's a level of fulfillment in it. We have capacity in it. And then it's also fun. Like, this is, you know what I mean? It's actually fun to I love having conversations. I do believe in vulnerability, and just being honest in the space with another human being. And that breaks down barriers, and it also breaks off like years and years and loads of like heaviness and shame and things like that. It brings healing. Conversations, honest, open, vulnerable conversations with other human beings literally brings healing. It facilitates freedom. So I mean, that's part of
I understand you more as a result of this podcast. I understand myself more as a result of this podcast. I probably understand you two more, even though we just met as a result of this podcast.
There's growth.
Because you're having those
conversations.
I just think just culturally thinking, it's not something that our culture does. I'm not going to tell you the struggles, behind closed doors, or come out and tell you. It's so funny. I remember there was one of the young adults said, and this was at the time Dean and I were going through our challenging moment at 10 years. And she said, I just want our marriage to be like yours. Like, you guys are so strong. And I kept saying, I was looking at her going, if you only knew. I said, really? No, we're okay. But I would feel at that time, we were having the struggles at home, but by time you got to church, it's the hi, honey, come over here, because
that's what was expected of you.
Expected. You mean you have Christ in your life and your marriage is struggling? Like, wow. Those are things.
Like, yes.
Thank you all for joining us today. Make sure, if you haven't, that you like, follow, share, subscribe. We'd love to have you, and we'll see you again soon.